Hey everybody, welcome to the Morning Devo with Bowo. Hope you guys are well today. It is June 26th, so we are in the last week here of June. And wow, that's hard to believe that we're already going to be in July. And 4th of July is going to be coming. Everybody in July birthdays, we're all going to be a year older. How cool is that? Nothing like getting old, right? As my dad always said, getting old's not for sissies. Hey, welcome to the morning devotion. The morning Devo with Bowo. Devo isn't the band Devo. It is just short for devotion. Many of us, that lived through the 80s. We hear Devo and we think of the band Devo, right? Crack that whip, that whole thing. And, but it's devotion. Devotions, doing your devotions. I do them just through the Bible, reading through the Bible. So instead of just taking a little tiny snippet of the Bible and thinking about that, nothing's wrong with that, but I tend to like to go through the Bible. That way it helps me understand my world. It helps me understand why things are the way they are. It answers a lot of questions that I have about God, about people, about human beings, about this world, what's going to happen, how things are going to play out. The Bible is vastly predictive, what we would call prophetic literature. And so it's very fascinating to read it. And it also has a lot of history in there. So you learn about other empires and all kinds of things and how it relates to our life even today. So again, most questions I had about the Bible is just simply would have been answered if I just would have read it. But instead of reading it, I ended up criticizing it. Like so many of us, right? Especially that grow up in Southern California, very progressive. Well, we don't kind of, want to read the Bible. We don't want accountability for sure. And, not that kind of accountability, not with the deity, not with God, we kind of do want to do things our own way. We tend to be stubborn like that as human beings. So, okay, Matthew 23 is where we're at. I'm going to read through this and comment on a few things that kind of jump out of the, I would say page, but I actually read from a tablet. So, I don't know, jump off the tablet, kind of thing. So Matthew 23, let's see how Jesus rolls, okay? Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, okay, so the crowds are listening in. The disciples are listening in. And of course, among the crowds are those that he's been dealing with, these religious high-ups, those that are in the know, those that are religiously right, the ones that, don't want to listen, their law is the best. They got a law that they want to impose on everybody. And Jesus has a lot to say about these people. Here you go. Now just think today, if you got on a plane, are there countries that you can go visit that if you criticized their religious law, you would be in trouble? Just think through that. Is the Bible relevant? Absolutely. If you get on a plane, are there some countries that you can go to today, right now, and that you can go visit, and you would be in trouble if you criticized their religious laws? And are those religious laws imposed on the entire population of the country? Is religious law imposed on everybody in the country? It's a very interesting question. You might want to think through this one a little bit. And I'm sure will answer yes in the affirmative. What would happen if you lived the way you lived currently, and you wanted to say that you want to live that way in that other country that you're going to visit that wants to impose their religious law on you, and it is mandated to impose their religious law on you? What would you say to them? What would you say? Hey, I want to do this. I've been doing it forever. I've lived in Southern California for a long time, and this is what we do. Why can't I do this? Are there places like that today? So Jesus says to the crowds and to the disciples, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. They are the ones in charge. They are the interpreters of the Bible. They are the true church. They are the true, Jewish people. They are the true, right? Everybody's always like that. We're the true church. Yikes. Like, you mean, the only true church, the only true. Jesus says these are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you. Meaning you're going to have to listen to them, obey them, listen to them, but don't follow their example. So obey them, practice and obey whatever they tell you. They are in the authority. They are the people of power. But don't follow their examples. Don't be like them, for they don't practice what they teach. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Are there places that we can go to today where people are crushed by unbearable religious demands, that the leadership themselves don't lift a finger to ease the burden of these religious laws? There are places today where this is happening all the time. There are particular beliefs, or countries, I should say, where there is no separation of church and state. Hey, are you for separation of church and state, you Berkeley student? You University of Southern California person? Are you for the separation of church and state? Well, you can get on a plane and go someplace right now where there is no separation of church and state. Yeah. And no matter what you think is right, you will be forced to have the religious law imposed on you as well, and you must obey and practice it. Yet you might know that even the religious leaders themselves don't kind of follow through with everything that's being imposed. Everything they do is for show. Everything they do is for show. It's all just for the TV. It's just to move people. You know, what's the show? Why do we go to theaters? Why do we go to shows? It's to move us. Right? We're touched by it. We see something and we go, wow, that was impactful. A religious show to move the people, to make the people think they're on the right track. You know, you do everything, the leaders do everything for a show. On their arms, they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels. They look the part. These religious people in these countries all look the part. They look religious. They got their robes on. They got their religious garb on. Those people in church look so religious with their cool hats and their cool attire and their neat robes and all their official, uniform. And he says, and they love to sit at the head of the table at banquets and in the seats of honor in the synagogues. They are in the place of power. They are sitting in the right seats. They are the people that, all the placards that they have on the streets that they're lifting up, in the streets on their march, all have your face on it. It all shows just you and your glory, those kind of things. Are there countries like this? You love the head of the table. You are in the place of prominence. It's your face that's on the billboard. It's your face that's on the plaque, the placard, the poster. You love that place. It says they love to receive respectful greetings, and as they walk in the marketplaces, they love to be called teacher, rabbi, ayatollah. Whatever it is, they love the religious pastor. They love the name, the title. Sometimes we think pastor is like a person's first name in the United States. Pastor Bo, Pastor Scott, Pastor this. No, my name's Bo. I serve as a minister, but it's certainly not my first name. Jesus said, call no one rabbi. Isn't that amazing? He wanted us to really think through it and go, hey, we really do, all of us really do are under one king, one true teacher. But Jesus is addressing the crowds and his disciples about the religious leaders and about their power-hungry desire to use religious law as a way to control a country, to control people. Does it sound like today? Does it sound like so many books that have been written, fictional books, non-fictional books, historical fiction books, on these topics? Yeah, same thing going on today. Don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all you are equal as brothers and sisters. They are no greater than you. They might think they are, but they're not. And you only have one rabbi, and it ain't them. And don't address anyone here on earth as Father, for only God is your heaven, and heaven is your Father. Man, don't be so into this, Father, and it's so weird, right? That we have fallen into this. We call people Father. We call people Rabbi. We call people teacher. And we tend to overemphasize these titles. And Jesus wants the people of Israel to realize they only have one God. one God. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. And Jesus is just pointing them to the covenant. You guys have only one God. You're not to be, thinking of other people like this. You're not to be, thinking there's other people that are like your deity. And he talks about your Father in heaven. And he says you only have one teacher. Don't call anybody teacher. You only have one, and that's the Messiah. That's it. The one who, you have one Father, you have one Messiah. Man, they're your leaders. Go for it. The greatest among you must be a servant. So Jesus' teaching as the Messiah is the greatest is the servant. If they are the greatest, they are serving you. They are serving. They are helping. They are lifting a finger. Or are they just those that, like to, wear their nice outfits and, just, live in their nice place and just govern? The old govern. And those who humble themselves will be exalted. Do they walk humbly? Man, he has really been drilling the religious leaders on this thing called humility. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You don't go in yourselves, and you don't let others enter either. Okay, this is a harsh word. It's talk about going against the hegemony, right? The power structures. Jesus goes at them and says something pretty gnarly. You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You don't allow people to enter into the kingdom. And you don't even go in yourself. You don't let others enter. You aren't saved. You don't know God. Could you imagine the frustration, anger, absolute hatred the religious leaders had towards Jesus to say this in the crowd? He has spoken to them privately in ways about this, but they will not listen. And he is speaking publicly about their hypocrisy. And he makes it very clear that they are wrong, off, not in. You think you're keeping your religious law, whatever country you're in. You think you got your law and you're keeping it by wearing your whatever you're wearing, by, your certain prayer times, by, you think you're keeping your religious law, but you're not. You can't keep it all the way. You fail. You can't keep it no matter what religious law you got going. You can't keep it. You think you can keep the 10 Commandments? If your religious law believes that the 10 Commandments are valid, do you think you really keep the 10 Commandments? Think about it. You'll find utter failure. Nope, you are going to need saving. You are going to need atonement. But then you impose what you can't do onto other people and then ridicule them and imprison them and put them on trial for not being able to do what you can't do. Religion. What a mess. It's absolutely disgusting. And Jesus speaks in this way. You guys don't even you're a religious person and you don't let anybody come close to God. You're a religious person and you won't even go close to God yourself. You're a religious person and you won't listen to God. And you don't want others to listen to God. And Jesus is like, I'm right here. You don't want anybody to listen to me. You hate me. You want anybody to hang out with me. That's how blind you are. That's what your religion has done. Your pride and all your religious law and all your self-righteousness, oh, it's made you just a wreck. Don't think it cannot come to us. Because, man, what is our heart like? Do we see ourselves in who Jesus is speaking of? Man, that is something a lot of us don't want to look at. Am I becoming like this? Am I a bitter, envious, self-righteous, who want to enforce what I cannot even do onto other people? What am I like? Kind of tough. What sorrow awaits you teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell. You yourselves are what? Children of hell. That's what you are. Could you? I just laugh because how could, if Jesus spoke this way today, man, you could see how he would be crucified again. Just so blatant to those strong religious people that think they're so right. Ooh, again, the pride just oozes right out of you. And he says, you make one convert, but you make him a child of hell. You don't bring him to grace. You don't bring him to mercy. Instead, you've brought him to this awful religious system that can do nothing for you. It just keeps you in utter bondage. Are there places that we can get on a plane and go fly to where we see this religious bondage taking place that has kept people in shackles? Yet they think they're on the right path, right? They think they've been converted to the right thing. And they're proud about it. And they're blinded. They don't see what's going on. They seem to be off. Like something's not right. And Jesus is trying to tell them that your religious leaders are leading you to hell. Man, there's a way that seems right, but in the end it leads to destruction. Blind guides, he calls the religious leaders blind guides. What sorrow awaits you? For you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but that it is binding to swear by the gold of the temple. Blind fools, which is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say that to swear by the altar is not binding, but to swear by the gifts on the altar is binding. How blind! For which is more important, the gift on the altar or the altar that makes the gift sacred? When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God who sits on the throne. Meaning you guys don't interpret anything right. All your laws, all your dinking around with your religious, law that you impose on everybody, it doesn't make sense. It's all weird. It's all, your guys' way of thinking. This power group that's imposing all this on people, forcing them so that you can control everybody. This is what most of us don't like about religion, is what Jesus is talking about here. Is he nails it, right? It's all power. It's all money. It's all positions of, manipulation on large scales, manipulating whole groups of people, whole countries into a particular way of thinking, not by freedom, not by that, but by force. Or else there is a punishment. There is a criminalization of the population. You make a person a criminal by your various laws, Jesus says. You impose your religious law and you've made everybody a criminal. And yet you yourself can't do it either. It's just ridiculous. But you have the place of power. So you have the, liberty to, get by. But no one else does. And he says, hey, what sorrow awaits you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees. What sorrow awaits. You think you're going to go to the nirvana, but you are not, man. Jesus speaks as though he knows very well what eternity for these people is going to be like. He doesn't guess on it. He doesn't wonder about it. He speaks as though he knows very, very, very well. He is in the know. And he says, hypocrites, for you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the most important aspects of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Blind guides, you strain your water so that you won't accidentally swallow a gnat, but you swallow a camel. Jesus says you guys are ridiculous. Again, you make no sense at all. You refuse to listen to the Bible that speaks of justice, mercy, faith, and instead you somehow have gravitated to all these incredible, minute religious laws to somehow make yourself better than. Again, to make people worse than you so that you can control, manipulate. What sorrow awaits you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. Full of greed, self-indulgence. Full of greed and self-indulgence, right? The religious laws, they're not doing. Our religious leaders, they don't do it, right? They're full of self-indulgence. They got their own little things on the side, right? Oh, they got their own little, breaks in the law. Oh, well, we're still doing the law. We found a loophole over here. We found a loophole over here. No one else can do those things, but we can. And Jesus points it out that when we as human beings are in places of power, we tend to become self-indulgent and full of greed. Isn't that interesting? When we get in places of power, we become self-indulgent and full of greed. Think about that. Is that true in your own life? When you have freedom, what do we sometimes do with our freedom? When we have places of power, sometimes we can become self-indulgent. We can do it. We have the resources, and we become greedy. Now, this is a human condition, don't get me wrong, being self-indulgent and greedy. But Jesus is really honing in on the hypocrisy of the religious leaders. They're supposed to be strict religious leaders, but yet they themselves are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first watch the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside will become clean too. Deal with your insides, man. Deal with what's going on in you. Hey, that country where all this religious law is going on, what's in your heart? Why is there so much hate that just oozes out of you? Oozes out of the country? Can you see it? Can you see all the hate? Instead of focusing on the outside and the right religious clothes and the right religious attire, maybe we have to focus as humans on what's going on inside. What sorrow awaits you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly, you look like righteous people, but inwardly, your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. Inside, it's all a mess. You won't confess it because you're afraid. You're afraid to say, you're afraid to lose your position. People might not see you the same way. So you can't say, hey, I struggle with lust, I struggle with greed, I struggle with this, I struggle with that, because people will just see you as everybody else. And that's not how you want to be seen. You want to have your place of power. Man, Jesus nails it. I love Jesus, dude. He just nails it. But in saying that, you testify against yourselves that you are indeed the descendants. It says, I missed, let's see, 29. It says, what sorrow awaits you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you build the tombs for the prophets your ancestors have killed, and you decorate the monuments of the godly people your ancestors destroyed. Then you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would have never joined them in killing the prophets. But in saying that, you testify against yourself that you are indeed the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead and finish what your ancestors started, snakes, son of vipers. How will you escape from the judgment of hell? So Jesus makes it very clear that the religious leaders are not going to heaven. They are not getting in the kingdom. Hey, religious leader out there, you might not be getting into heaven, just so you know. Just because you're a religious leader, that doesn't mean much in front of the Messiah. Yeah, you might think you got it all down, but compared to Jesus, you're undone and I'm undone. And I need saving utterly. And you do too. But boy, if you dig in your heels and you say, no, I got it together, I'm religious, I'm the religious teacher, I'm the one who's, oh man, I'm the good guy, I'm the one in power, be very aware. Jesus' words might be just for you. You have killed, you are a part of that crew that have killed the prophets. You are part of that crew because you want to kill me too. The same hate that's in them is in you. Just as Jeremiah and Isaiah and all these people, people were killed by their own people. So Jesus says, you guys want to kill me as well. I mean, whoa. Very intense statements to Israel. Very much like the Old Testament, just as Yahweh speaks to Israel. Jesus does the same exact thing, and he speaks in the same manner, and he speaks with the same harsh tone, a tone of judgment. Yahweh would come and judge his people, and he's going to judge the shepherds of the flock, right? Ezekiel talked about that he's going to judge the bad shepherds, and he's going to rebuke them, and they will get what's coming to them. And he lumps them right in there with those murders of prophets. Therefore, I'm sending you prophets and wise men and teachers of religious law, but you will kill some by crucifixion, and you will flog others with whips in the synagogues, chasing them from city to city. I'm going to send you some people, man, and they're going to teach, but you're going to run after them. I wonder if it's Paul the Apostle they're talking about. But you're going to go from city to city. You're going to chase Peter. You're going to chase Paul. You're going to chase James. You're going to go after them. And it says, and as a result, you will be held responsible for the murder of all godly people of all time, from the murder of righteous Abel to the murder of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you killed in the temple between the sanctuary and the altar. I tell you the truth, this judgment will fall on this very generation. Your rejection of Messiah publicly will be accounted for. You will be accountable for your public rejection of the Messiah. I mean, this is a note to Israel. This is a note to the religious leaders of Israel. Unbelievable. Very, very tough stuff to swallow. Jesus at this point cries, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers." Oh, can you believe it? He's saying this to Jeremiah. You know, you might want to read Zechariah again. Little notes about Jeremiah throughout the book of Zechariah. One day, Jerusalem, those there will look upon the one they were pierced, and they will turn finally to their Messiah. But at this point, in the public rejection of the Messiah, Jesus says, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. How often I have wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me. And now look, your house is abandoned and desolate. For I tell you this, you will never see me again until you say, 'Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.'" Wow, there'll be that time where they will say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." There will be a day of salvation for Israel. But right now, they are desolate. They have rejected their rabbi. They have rejected their teacher. And their teacher sees that, and he's touched. He's hurt. His heart breaks for their stubbornness and their rebellion. Now, when I see that country that you can fly to in such blindness, with such pride, and such religious yuck that is there, enforcing religious law on everybody, criminalizing everybody that can't uphold it where no one can uphold it, right? But the religious ruling powers just stay in power, live their life, have everything they want, everything they need. They indulge, they're greedy, they use their money wrongly for the country, not for the sake of the people, but for their own sake, for their own building up of their own kingdoms, all this stuff like that. Jesus cries, "You that are desolate, your house is desolate. One day you will turn, but it's not now." And that's so sad. One day, that's my prayer, is one day these countries will see. One day these people will their eyes will be open to a grace upon grace, a sure salvation, a sure foundation, a precious stone, a cornerstone, a foundation that's a rock, a foundation that's not dependent on their ability to keep religious law, but a God who would die for them, pay for them, love them, atone for their sin, and also give them a gift, the Spirit, to help them in their life, to remind them of that grace, and to give them a future and a hope. The hope, the sure hope of salvation. Not some religious law, but the Messiah himself. That's what people need. Your religious law is only going to bind you, but the Messiah frees you. And this is what Jesus was getting at. It's breathtaking, because to see this live would have been a death sentence. You would have saw Joshua, the carpenter's son, pronouncing his death sentence as he spoke this way publicly. Unbelievable. The boldness, the heart of love that is pouring out of Jesus to help these people see what's going on, is the courage is unprecedented. That's why we admire things like Martin Luther King Jr. and the different marches that we've seen. The guy who stood up in Tiananmen Square back in the day, when he stood before that tanker. I don't know if you guys remember that on TV, but man, like going against the Red Army, or Right of China. I mean, that was amazing. And Jesus on just a national scale does this with so many people watching, listening, and him just doing it, saying what needs to be said. It is jaw-dropping, this chapter. But it's one that we can look at today and just go, not only admire Jesus and his courage and say, boy, could I have a courage like that? But also a heart to pray for people in a world that is so bound in religious law instead of in the freedom that's in Jesus. And that there would be true freedom for people, even today, in these places that we can go to. And in our own land, for sure. So you guys have a great day, okay? Yeah, Michael says Bonhoeffer. Yeah, you might want to read his book. It's quite fascinating. Anyway, we will talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.